Hi, everybody. Welcome to the AGJC's weekly Pre-Shabbat Zoom. Each week, we gather together, the Jewish communities of all 6 GCC countries and our families and friends from around the world to hear an inspirational message before Shabbat, light candles, hear a Dvar Torah, pray, and read a section from the weekly Torah portion. Today, we join hundreds of Jewish communities around the world for the Shabbat Project, a program that originated in South Africa with the goal of uniting Jewish communities around the world for one Shabbat. Since launching in 2013, communities in 1,500 plus cities in 100 countries have participated in the annual program. Today, we will hear from Joanna, Chief Executive of the Rabbi Sacks Legacy, who will speak with us about Rabbi Lord Sacks of blessed memory, his legacy and the impact he has had on Jewish people and the communities around the world. I had the honor of meeting Rabbi Sacks when I was in Washington, and he was in town for a speaking engagement. Rabbi Sacks was a unique leader in the Jewish world and far beyond. He had a profound impact on the Jewish world with his eloquent words, giving a voice to many. Through his writings, countless public engagements, and the way he lived his life, he sought to demonstrate how the best of Western thought could enhance Judaism and how Jewish values could help to repair the many fractures in our society and world. While he had many profound quotes, there is one which resonates with me as a citizen of the region. Following the Abraham Accords, Rabbi Sacks said, "Much can and must be done by governments, but they cannot of themselves change lives." When I read this, I immediately thought of the Abraham Accords. Our leaders signed the accords to create a better future for us and our children, but it's up to the people of our countries to help carry them to the next level, which will help change lives. The Association of Gulf Jewish Communities is the umbrella organization for the Jewish communities of the GCC countries that are building and enhancing Jewish life in the region. While each community is independent, we share a common goal and vision for Jewish life to flourish in the Gulf for the benefit of both residents and visitors. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you will join us next week as well. To stay updated on AGJC events, please follow us on Twitter at Gulf Jewish and visit our website, www.gulfjewish.org. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Huda. And now over to RD, who's going to light candles for us this week.
Hi, Ariella. Thank you. So I'm just wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom from Milano. Well, I'm usually in Jerusalem, but this weekend I'm in Italy. And just a quick thought on Rabbi Sacks. He actually was... we have a special connection with him. My father was a BBC documentary maker during the 70s and 80s, and then spent many years after that, with Channel 4 and other independent channels. And in the 80s, he made a documentary, I think probably for BBC, on Lord Jakobovits. And during the 1990s, he made a documentary. I'm pretty sure it's Channel 4, on Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, and they had a very special relationship. I've just looked through the archive of the Legacy website, and I can't seem to find it. And when I get back to Jerusalem, I'm sure I've got the promo details of this documentary that was broadcast in the 90s, and I will send it on. In the meantime, I will just say that what's extraordinary about his legacy is that pretty much at every single Shabbat table I'm at, wherever I am across the world, there is always somebody who, when they give a few words of Torah, they always quote Rabbi Sacks. And it's quite extraordinary to be such a modern day commentator on our lives and on Judaism. So without spending too much more time taking your time, I don't even know if this will work, but I don't know if you can see in the distance is the downtown Milan. And I've got my little, my little tea lights that I'm going to do. I couldn't do this with the regular candles. Anyway, I'm going to quickly make the bracha. See if I can. Probably will just start. Sorry, clearly haven't done this before. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kishana b'tzitav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. And now We have the honor of having Isaac with us, who's going to do a double header of Yedid Nefesh and Lecha Dodi. But before he does so, he's going to also share a few words about Rabbi Sachs.
So I had the honor and the pleasure of organizing a trip for Rabbi Sachs in 2004 to Gibraltar, when Gibraltar was celebrating its anniversary of its British connection. And my job at the time was to stand beside him and tell him who was coming towards him, name, affiliation, etc. And when he spoke to the Roman Catholic bishop, he spoke at length of St. Francis of Assisi. And when he spoke to the Methodist minister, he spoke about John Wesley. So it was an extraordinary time to be part of a very important event in Gibraltar, and to be next to him with his, charisma and the connection he has to many people. So it's an honor to be here in Bahrain, in the Bet HaKnesset in Bahrain. I would tell you all to come and visit because it's fabulous. Yedid nefesh avarachamana meshoch avdecha el retzonecha yarutz avdecha kemo hayal yishtachave mul adarecha ki yerav lo yedidutecha minof etzuf וכל טעם אדוני זיפה עולם נפשי כל אהבתך הנעל נערפה נעלה בהרות לנו עם זיווח אז תתחזק ותתרפא והייתה לך שמחת עולם ותיק אמונה רחמך וחוסנה על בן אהובך כי זה כמה נחשפתי לראות בתפארת עוזך אנא אלי מחמד ליבי חוסנה ואל תתעלם תגלנה ופרוס חביב עלי את סוכת שלומך תאיר ארץ מכבודך נגילה ונשמחה בך מהר אהוב כי בא מועד וכונני כי מעולם לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד השמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה לקראת שבת לכו ונלך כי היא מקורה ברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחש ותהילה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה התנערי מעפר קומי לבשי בגדי תפארתך עמי על יד בן ישי בית הלחמי קורבה אל נפשי גאלה התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לא תבושי ולא תקלמי מה תשתוכחי ומה תהמי בך יחסו עניי עמי ונבנתה עיר על תילה והיו למשיסה שוסייך ורחקו כל מבלעייך יעסיס עלייך אלוהייך כמשוש חתנה על כלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, ימין ושמאל, תפרוצי ואת אדוני תריצי, על יד איש בן פרצי, ונשמחה ונגילה, בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובסהולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Thank you very much, Isaac. So today we have the honor to hear from Joanna Ben-Arosh, and actually I've been asked to introduce her, which is really an honor. So Joanna serves as the chief executive at the Rabbi Sachs Legacy, directing the organization's mission of inspiring Jewish communities around the globe to connect with their faith through the teachings of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the former chief rabbi of the United Kingdom. A longtime member of Rabbi Sachs's professional staff at the Office of the Chief Rabbi, Joanna was instrumental in establishing the Office of Rabbi Sachs in 2013, when Rabbi Sachs announced his retirement from his post as the Chief Rabbi of the United Hebrew Congregations of the Commonwealth, and in rebranding and transitioning the organization to the Rabbi Sachs Legacy Trust after his passing in 2020. What was unique about Rabbi Sachs is that his teaching spoke to every person who heard him speak or who read his books. There are so many quotes from Rabbi Sachs which resonate, but one which stands out to me is when he said, "Optimism is believing that something good will happen. Hope is our ability to make it happen." Today, we join more than 200 Jewish communities and day schools spanning 6 continents for Communities in Conversation, a learning initiative to commemorate Rabbi Sachs on his second yahrzeit. To quote Joanna recently, as we prepare to mark the second anniversary of the passing of our dear Rabbi Sachs, his words and his mission to inspire deeper conversations on what Judaism means to the individual remain just as relevant on his second yahrzeit as they did when he first spoke them. It's now my pleasure to introduce Joanna to speak with us all today.
Thank you so much, Ariella, and it's a real honor to be with you all. I know that Rabbi Sachs spoke to you in September 2020, just before Rosh Hashanah, before the AGJC took this over, and he was bowled over by the Abraham Accords and everything that you've all achieved, and the way that you all come together. I think that's what really excited him. I couldn't speak to you today without sharing some words from Rabbi Sachs himself. And I wanted to share with you something that really spoke to me, and I think really accompanies me on the journey that he started. This week's Parsha Shabbat Yitro Rabbi Sachs passed away on this Shabbat 2 years ago. And it's a very poignant Shabbat for us all, as you can imagine, and for the family. But I wanted to share with you one of his Parshat HaShavua about this Parsha. And if you don't mind, if I'm just going to read you some of it, because I can't put it into my own words because his words are too beautiful. There's one image that haunts us across the millennia, fraught with emotion. It's the image of a man and his son walking side by side across a lonely landscape of shaded valleys and barren hills. The son has no idea of where he's going and why. The man, in point of contrast, is a maelstrom of emotion. He knows exactly where he's going and why, but he can't make sense of it at all. The God who gave him a son is now telling him to sacrifice his son. On the one hand, the man is full of fear. Am I really going to lose the one thing that makes my life meaningful? The son for whom I prayed all those years? On the other hand, part of him is saying, just as this child was impossible, I was old, my wife was too old, yet here he is. So though it seems impossible, I know that God is not going to take him from me. That is not the God I know and love. He would never have told me to call this child Isaac, meaning he will laugh if he meant to make him and me cry. The father is in a state of absolute cognitive dissonance, yet though he can make no sense of it, he trusts in God and betrays to his son no sign of emotion. Vayelchu shenehem yachdav, the two of them walk together. There is just one moment of conversation between them. Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father, Yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and wood are here, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. What worlds of unstated thoughts and unexpressed emotions lie behind those simple words, yet as if to emphasize the trust between father and son and between both and God, the text repeats, Vayelchu shenehem yachtav, the two of them walk together. As I read those words, I find myself traveling back in time, and in my mind's eye, I see my father and me walking back from shul on Shabbat. I was 4 or 5 years old at the time, and I think I understood then. Even if I couldn't put it into words, there was something sacred in that moment. During the week, I would see the worry in my father's face as he was trying to make a living in difficult times, but on Shabbat, all those worries were somewhere else. Vayelchu shenehem yachtav, we walked together in the peace and beauty of the holy day. My father was no longer a struggling businessman. Today, he was a Jew, breathing God's air, enjoying God's blessings, and he walked tall. We walked together, my parents, my brothers, and me. The two generations were so different. My father came from Poland. My brothers and I were proper Englishmen. We knew we would go places, learn things, and pursue careers they could not. But we walked together, two generations not having to say that we loved one another. We weren't a demonstrative family, but we knew of the sacrifices our parents had made for us and the pride we hoped to bring them. We belonged to different times, different worlds, had different aspirations, but we walked together. As long as there is a living connection between Jews and our heritage, we will never forget that there is nothing more important than home, the sacred bonds of marriage, and the equally sacred bonds between parent and child. Vayelchu shenehem yachtav. Jews knew and know and will always know that a civilization is as strong as the bond between the generations. That is the enduring image of this week's Parsha, the first Jewish parent, Abraham, and the first Jewish child, Isaac, walking together towards an unknown futures, their fears stilled by their faith. Lose the family and we will eventually lose all else. Sanctify the family and we will have something more precious than wealth or power or success. The love between the generations that is the greatest gift God gives us when we give it to one another. Rabbi Sachs would often talk about those walks to shul with his father and how he would pepper him with questions. And his father used to respond, Jonathan, I can't answer those questions. I don't have the education that you're going to get, but one day you will give me all the answers. And how right he was. Rabbi Sachs loved to learn. He was a lifelong learner. He learned from his conversations with people from all walks of life. He learned from books he read, probably one a day, if not more, from the music he listened to and from the articles he devoured, even from films he watched. And I savored and treasured those conversations with him. I remember once taking a day off to visit the set of Downton Abbey. It's a great thing here, and we're all very excited that there's the next series, that they're to watch all the series. And Highclere Castle is where it was filmed, and I took the day off to go there with my daughter for her birthday. And Rabbi Sachs, on my return, wanted to know all about the visit. He was slightly interested in Downton Abbey, not really, but then he proceeded to ask me about the Egyptian exhibition, which celebrates the Earl of Carnarvon's discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun. I walked around the exhibition with my daughter and we were quite interested, but Rabbi Sachs proceeded to tell me in great detail about the exhibition and a book he'd read by the Countess of Carnarvon. It was quite extraordinary, but I shouldn't have been at all surprised. Of course, he had read her book from cover to cover several years before. He was interested in everything that we did as a family, as a team. He wanted to know, he cared. He was really passionate about knowing and caring for us all, and felt that we were part of his family and that he was walking together with us. This was something that was very much a part of the way that he treated all of us as his team. Rabbi Sachs was an irreplaceable leader, someone whose voice carried weight across the Jewish world and within wider society. And he was someone whose voice I and many others still yearn for today and needs to be heard for generations to come. At his core, Rabbi Sachs was a teacher of Torah. He taught Torah to Jews and non-Jews alike with equal passion and insight and with equal success. He wanted Jews to live, as he called it, a Judaism engaged with the world, one which he showed us and the world the integral contribution our faith had to make. He, more than any other recent leader, taught us how to live Jewish values, preserve our intergenerational bonds, and how to share these values with the world, and how to walk together. We continue to grapple with how best to preserve his legacy, but knowing how many other people want to do likewise is not just hugely inspiring, but comforting as well. As Ariella mentioned, over 200 communities and schools and organizations around the world in 23 countries and 6 continents are taking part in communities and conversation over the next few days to honor Rabbi Sax's memory on his second yacht site. I hope that we can all do him proud and together continue the conversations that he started.
Sorry, we've got a fly. Excuse water. Thank you so much, Joanna, for speaking with us and sharing that and sharing about Rabbi Sachs. And we're really honored to be part of those 200 communities. Here we represent officially 6, although we have our families and friends from all over the world. But today we join you as the Jewish communities of Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Oman. So thank you very much for joining us. And now we will head over to Sir Rabbi Elchanan Miller, who's going to share a few words with us today. Thank you. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. So thank you, Ariella and Huda and the AGJC for inviting me to speak today, to step in for Rabbi Abadi and speak to you today. It's a special honor to speak on the yard side of Rabbi Sachs, whom I had the privilege of meeting when I was living in London. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. The book of Genesis, which we're reading these days in shul and synagogues around the world, can be seen as a sort of guidebook to what is moral, proper behavior for Jews specifically, but for all of humanity more broadly. So from Adam until Jacob and Joseph, we can see through modeling, through our forefathers' behavior, both positive and negative, we can see what we should do as humans. So do not kill, which we learn from Cain and Abel, do not disobey God's words in Adam, etc. And it goes through, Joanna mentioned the sacrifice or the binding of Isaac. We can learn from there that human sacrifices are not desired by God, that God doesn't want people to worship him through sacrificing their children, which was a custom in the ancient world. But I'd like to focus today on another section of the portion that we're going to read this Shabbat, Vayera, in synagogues, which is the debate that happens very soon after the beginning of the Parsha. The angels come to Abraham and tell him the very happy news of the looming birth of his son Isaac. And immediately after that, they tell him about the looming destruction of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, of Sodom. And rather than submit to God's decree, Abraham starts arguing with God and negotiating with him. This story, for the Muslim viewers here in the room, also exists in the Quran, in Surat Hud, in Surat Al-Dhariyat, in different versions, where the reference is to Qawm Lut, and to these cities known as Al-Mu'takifat. So different names, but same story. And the disagreement or the debate between Abraham and God goes as follows. Abraham begins by asking God, will he destroy the city if there are 50 righteous people in it? God said he won't. Then Abraham brings the number down to 40. Finally, he ends with 10. And from that number 10, we see that that's sort of the minimal number of what is considered a community or a congregation. We learn of the idea of a minyan, of a Jewish quorum through that number. And then Abraham retreats and is maybe satisfied with God's answer that he won't destroy the city. I think there are two very important, crucial messages that come out of this story, which I'd like to share with you today. The first, and let me just focus on the one verse that I want to comment on in chapter 18 of Genesis. It says, far be it from you to do such a thing, Abraham says to God, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all earth do right? This rhetorical question, right? Will not the judge of all earth, the earth do right? is sort of the opening to the negotiations that I just mentioned between Abraham and God. So there are 2 points that I think I'd like to bring forward. The first is that these verses, like others in the Torah, are established on a clear idea of right and wrong, of what is just and what is unjust, of what is moral and immoral. I say this because today there are intellectual, trends in the world that are relativist and that would argue with the mere definition of ideas as good or bad inherently. You say you shouldn't kill, well, that's just your opinion. Perhaps killing is not an absolute evil. I'm taking it to the extreme, but that's an example, I think, of relativistic thinking that is very, very common and prevalent in these days. So the Torah, and here in the words of Abraham, has a very clear idea of morality, of what is good and evil, and for people to fight for good and to fight against evil. But the second idea, which I think is maybe even more profound, is the idea that Abraham comes to God to this debate with a pre-existing idea of what is justice, right? Will not the judge of all earth do right, or do what is just? And the same word is used, shofet, the judge must do mishpat, must do justice. This is a very profound and I think radical idea, which is that the idea of justice is separate from the idea of God. In a sense, Abraham demands of God to submit himself to this global and universal and primordial idea of justice, right? And God agrees. God doesn't say, well, I define what is just, or you don't know what is just, sort of what he says in the book of Job, for example. But no, God goes along with it, and God actually argues or debates Abraham on his own terms. God agrees that he must do justice. And I think this quality in Abraham, the quality of demanding justice of God, and in a way submitting God to this global universal idea of justice, is what makes Abraham such a special and unique person, and actually the reason why God chose Abraham. We're told in the Torah that God chose Abraham because he leman asher yetzavet banav et beito acharav v'shamru derech Hashem la'asot tzedakah u'mishpat. God chose Abraham because he keeps the ways of God and does justice and what is right. And that's why God chose Abraham. I'd like to connect all of this to Rabbi Sacks. And I think that the reason that Rabbi Sacks was such an influential leader on the global stage, and people have mentioned this before me, is because precisely Rabbi Sacks spoke the words of justice and morality in a sense that, although it was grounded in Jewish thought and in Jewish scripture, transcended just Jewish language. He spoke in a clear moral voice that actually resonated with people all over the world, not just from Abrahamic faiths, but even from all faiths globally, even in East Asia. So I'd like to pay tribute to Lord Rabbi Sacks, Zichrono Livracha. May his memory be a blessing, and reflect sort of on the idea of morality and justice as an idea that we Jews can reflect and can resonate and can echo for the benefit of all humanity, just as Abraham did with the idea of Sodom. Thanks again, and Shabbat Shalom to you all.
Thank you very, very much, Rabbi Miller, for speaking with us today. And now we'll head over to Isaac, who's going to read a few psukim from the Parsha. But before we do so, I think some of you already seen it, but we thought since we're here, we'll just take a little bit advantage of it. And we'll show you guys, many of you have read about this. This is the Torah that Jared Kushner commissioned for the king of Bahrain and gave to the Jewish community to house here in the synagogue. So now we'll come back to Isaac.
ויקרא אליו מלאך אדוני מן השמיים ויאמר אברהם אברהם ויאמר הנני ויאמר אל תשלח ידך אל הנער ואל תעש לו מאומה כי אתה ידעתי כי ירא אלוהים אתה ולא אסחת את בנך את יחידך ממני ויישא אברהם את עיניו וירא והנה העיל אחר נאחז בסבך בקרניו וילך אברהם ויקח את העיל ויעלהו לעולה תחת בנו ויקרא אברהם שם המקום ההוא אדוני יראה אשר יאמר היום בהר אדוני יראה ויקרא מלאך אדוני אל אברהם שנית מן השמיים ויאמר בי נשבעתי נאום אדוני כי יען אשר עשית את הדבר הזה ולא הסחת את בנך את יחידך כי ברך ברכך והרבה את זרעך ככוכבי השמיים וכחול אשר על שפת הים וירש זרעך את שער אויביו ויתברכו בזרעך כל גויי הארץ עקב אשר שמעת בקולי וישוב אברהם אל נעריו ויקומו וילכו יחדיו אל באר שבע וישב אברהם בבאר שבע.
Now over to Michael Katz for the prayer for peace.
Prayer for peace, adapted from Rabbi Nachman ben Vega. Lord of peace, divine ruler, to whom peace belongs, master of peace, creator of all things, may it be your will to put an end to war and bloodshed on earth, and to spread a great and wonderful peace over the whole world. Help us and save us all, and let us cling tightly to the virtue of peace. Let there be a truly great peace between every person and their fellow, and let there be no discord between people, even in their hearts. Let us never shame any person on earth, great or small. May it be granted unto us to fulfill thy commandment, to love thy neighbor as thyself, with all our hearts and souls and bodies and possessions. God, who is peace, bless us with peace.
Thank you so much, Michael. And now we're so excited to have Jake Berger back with us. And Jake is going to say the prayer for the GCC.
Thank you, Ariella. I'd just first like to say how much of a pleasure it is to be back in the region. I'm here in Dubai, and it's a real honor to be opening Shabbat with you, marking the legacy of Rabbi Sachs. And all the more so special as it's been a remarkable time to be back in the region, as we've had the current Chief Rabbi Ephraim Mervis visiting, and I was privileged to be at a wonderful event with him in Dubai, and it really is a historic time. So it's great to be back with you all. The prayer for the welfare of the governments of the GCC. May he who delivers salvation to kings and dominion to princes, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, who delivers his servant David from the evil sword, who makes a way in the sea and a path through the mighty waters, bless and protect, guard and help, exalt, magnify and uplift His Majesty the King of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty the King of Bahrain, His Majesty the Sultan of Oman, His Highness the President of the UAE, His Highness the Emir of Kuwait, His Highness the Emir of Qatar, and all their crown princes. And may the Supreme King of Kings in his mercy put a spirit of wisdom and understanding into their hearts and the hearts of all the counselors and officials to deal kindly with us, the house of Jacob, and all the people of this land. Be their shelter and stronghold, and let them not falter. In their days and in ours, may these lands be blessed with stability, prosperity, and peace. May this be his will, and let us say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Jake. And before we turn it back over to Isaac for Shalom Aleichem, just a quick two thoughts. Number one is, over the next few days, people will be taking to social media and sharing some of the quotes that inspire them from Rabbi Sachs. And so it would be lovely for us to participate in that as well. So anybody who does it, feel free to DM it to the AGJC at Gulf Jewish, and we'll happily retweet it and share it. And also just a little commercial break for next week. We'll have Ambassador Dan Shapiro with the Atlantic Council, the former U.S. ambassador to Israel, who will join us and speak with us next week. So please, same time, same place, and same Zoom link. And now over to Isaac.
Shalom Alachem, Malachi Asharet, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem LeShalom, Malachi Ashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Barchuni LeShalom, Malachi Ashalom, מלאך עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא בשבתכם לשלום מלאכי השלום מלאך עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא צאתכם לשלום מלאכי השלום מלאך עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Shabbat shalom.
Wherever you're joining us from, Shabbat Shalom. Do you want to say Shabbat Shalom before we? head out?
Shabbat shalom.
Everybody,
Shabbat
see you.
shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Take
Good
care.
Shabbos.